What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue here with our 2023 predictions. The Florida Gators are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for the Gators. The FPI has them at 6.8 and 5.2. So really, they've got them going about 7 and 5. And I believe they're ranked number 18 in the FPI. So they think this is a top 25 team. FPI really high on Florida this year. The schedule, though, could be the problem. We'll get to that in a second. Athlon has them at 5 and 7, missing a bowl game. The over/under is at 5.5, which means 5 and 7, 6 and 6. Those are the most likely records. FPI even higher than that. Again, it's 7 and 5. I actually saw one place where the over/under for them was at 4.5. Yes, 4.5. So if you like Florida, if you can find that, I can't remember where it was, but if you think this team's going to be pretty good, I think that 4.5. I mean, they're at least going to go 5 and 7, you would think. Again, if those are your thoughts about Florida. My thoughts about this team, I think they're going to be kind of an average team in the SEC. I think they'll be able to run the football really well, like they did last year. Offensive line should be pretty strong. The defense will be a middle of the road, probably in the SEC. Not bad, but not great. It really comes down to Graham Mertz, and who's he going to throw the football to? I think that's, they've got some losses there. That's a concern for sure. And Graham Mertz was never great at Wisconsin, but he was never really in an offense that was too quarterback friendly there, and he did have a lot of hype coming in out of high school. So we'll see if he can kind of get back to that, to what those expectations were, or if he continues to struggle. And if they do struggle at the quarterback position, it could be a really long year for Florida. And a big reason why is because of this schedule. Here it is. And I've got this ranked as the toughest schedule in all of college football. I've seen some other schedule rankings where Florida is not number one in terms of toughest schedules. I think they're wrong. I just think that this is the toughest schedule. And I don't think it's really even all that close. I mean, you look at Utah and Florida State, two top 10, top 15 teams in the non-conference. Then you got to get through the SEC East where you've got Georgia. And then they'll play Arkansas and LSU, one of the top teams out of the West. It's just a really, really tough schedule. And what hurts Florida is when you talk about some of the teams on this schedule that are maybe 50-50 games that could go either way. A lot of them, or pretty much all of them, are on the road. Kentucky on the road, South Carolina on the road, Missouri on the road. Big games in the division that's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to go on the road and win those games, and that's another big reason why this schedule is just absolutely brutal. So this is a team that I think is going to be better than their record at the end of the season. They'll start things off with Utah. That game has actually been moved to Thursday. I forgot to change my graphic, but yeah, that'll be Thursday night on the road at Utah. A tough place to play. Going out west, Utah I think is going to be the better team. Cam Rising, will he play? Coming off of an injury, maybe some question marks there. I think he probably will play based off of what I've heard. If he doesn't play, I think Florida has a chance. If he does play, I really don't think they have a chance. I know you're going to say, well, look what they did last year. They played really well last year at home. This time on the road, it would take, a perfect game. Graham Mertz would have to go out there and have just the game of his life for Florida to have a chance. I just don't see that happening. I think Utah wins that game. And then I think Florida does bounce back and beat McNeese the next week. So I've got them starting 1-1. And then you've got Tennessee the next week on September 16th at home. This is a really big game. If Florida's going to have a good season, and I'm talking about getting to 8-4 or even better than that, if they're going to have any chance at a good season like that, they've got to win this game. You look at their opportunities at home. Who do they have at home? They have Tennessee in the SEC. They have Tennessee. They have Vanderbilt. They have Arkansas. That's it. Everything else is on the road. A neutral site game against Georgia. So this is a really big game for Florida. I just don't think they're going to win it. I think Tennessee's a better team. I don't see Florida's offense being able to keep up with Tennessee. I think Tennessee scores a lot of points in this game. I think they go on the road. They beat Florida, and I've got the Gators then beating Charlotte and getting to 2-2. Then they go to September 30th on the road at Kentucky. This will be a tough matchup for Florida. Kentucky going to have a lot of weapons on offense this year. I think they're improved from where they were last year. I see Kentucky, and this is crazy to say this, but I think Kentucky's going to have a better, more explosive offense than Florida, and I think they probably got a little bit of an advantage on defense as well. Plus, they're playing at home. Really no reason for me to take Florida in this game. Again, it's going to come down to Graham Mertz. If he goes out there and he proves everyone wrong and plays great, they could absolutely beat Kentucky. I'm not saying they can't win this game, but based off of what I've seen from him and just looking at these two teams, I think Kentucky is the better team playing at home. I'm going with the Wildcats. Next, it'll be Vanderbilt on October the 7th at home. And, getting some revenge for last year, playing at home. I just don't see Florida losing this game. Again, at home, no way they lose this game. I would be very surprised if they lost 2 years in a row to Vanderbilt. So I think Florida, the better team, more talented team, more athletic team. They should be able to run the football and do what they want to do, and I think they do win this game over Vandy. Then they'll play South Carolina the next week on October the 14th on the road. Tough place to play, of course. South Carolina's a team that I just did their predictions the other day. I think that some people are overrating them just a little bit, but when you compare the two rosters here, you've got a big advantage at quarterback for South Carolina. Playmaker in Juice Wells, something that Florida doesn't really have. Florida has an advantage in the running back position. And probably offensive line. Then you go to the defense. I think they're pretty similar. At home, I'd probably take Florida, honestly, but playing on the road, South Carolina, really tough place to play. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. I think South Carolina gets this win. Florida then drops to 3-4. Doesn't get any easier after that. They get a bye week, but then they'll play Georgia. It'll be a rivalry game. Both teams, Florida will come out fighting. They'll play hard, but they're not on Georgia's level. I don't see them winning this game. I've got Georgia winning, and then Florida drops to 3-5. They get Arkansas after that on November 4th at home. This is also a big game. I talked about Tennessee being a big game at home. This is their other, probably their second biggest game at home, at least in the SEC. This is a must-win. I mean, this is a must-win. If you're going to have any chance to get to a bowl game, I think Florida has to beat Arkansas. Even if they were to beat, let's say, Kentucky, you still probably, you have to beat Arkansas here, and this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be two teams that want to run the football. Expect a lot of rushing yards in this game. I think it'll be close. I think home field advantage might be enough for Florida. It's a tough one. I've had a hard time with this pick, but I'm going to say because they're at home and desperate. I think this is a desperate Florida team. They come out ready and they get the win, but wouldn't be surprised if they lost this game. And if they lose this game, they potentially could lose their final 6. That could very well happen if they lose to Arkansas. After this will be LSU on the road. Usually a good game. This year, maybe not so much. LSU playing at home, I just don't see them having too much trouble with Florida. This is going to be a really, really good LSU team. I think they win by at least a couple of touchdowns. And then Florida drops to 4-6. So they'll have to win their final 2 games to get to a bowl game. They'll have all the pressure going in on the road at Missouri. This is a pretty good matchup for Florida. I think, you look at the overall rosters here, Florida probably has a slight advantage, but they are playing on the road. Missouri is not going to be super explosive offensively, so Florida's not going to have to score a ton of points in this game. That bodes well for them. Another one that I think could go the other way, but I'm going to pick Florida, just a team that's desperate again. But like I said, I could see them losing to both Arkansas and Missouri. That would not be that big of a surprise. It could really be a bad year for Florida, potentially, with this schedule. And again, I'm not saying they're going to be a terrible team. It's just the schedule is brutal. They get Florida State here. They'll have to get to a bowl game. They'll have to win this to get to a bowl game. They're playing at home. It's a rivalry game. I expect them to come out and play really, really well and play desperate, just like the games against Arkansas and Missouri. But I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think Florida State's going to be too good this year. Not a blowout here, but Florida State does get the win in Gainesville. And Florida finishes 5-7. So I've got them right there where Athlon has them. But like I said, if you lose to Arkansas and Missouri, they could seriously go 3-9. That could happen with this schedule. I think 6-6, 7-5 is probably your best case scenario if they can beat South Carolina and Kentucky. Maybe you get to 7-5. I really don't see that happening. I think 6-6 is a more realistic best case scenario. But I actually think 4-8 is more likely than 6-6. And like I said, this is the toughest schedule in all of college football. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I've looked at all the schedules. I've done the numbers, used my formula, and I definitely believe that Florida does have the toughest schedule this year. So I've got them at 5-7, missing out on a bowl game, and it doesn't get any easier in 2024. They've got another brutal schedule. But what are your thoughts on Florida? Give me your predictions down in the comments below.